can blame others that it's not your fault for, why you're 20 pounds overweight. But at the end of the day, it's about taking personal responsibility for what you're eating and, more importantly, how you can change that. And so that's really what I like most about this book, is that it's not, it's not the gospel, but it can get you headed in the right direction just by reading a book. I've done all the research for you. You just got to pick it up and read it. And there is so many good things in here that will get you on that road, onto that journey of better quality living.
There's just you. It's just me, Phil. And you know what? That's good enough. Hey, folks, it's Phil D'Annunzio again. We're back here with Dr. Adam Riker. For those of you who may not know him, go back on my YouTube channel at Phil D'Annunzio. We already did a podcast. He's a unique fella. He's one of the only doctors I know who tries to teach you how to stay away from him, how to keep yourself healthy so you do not have to go see him. So check out that other podcast. Today, we're going to discuss his new book, Nutritional Nirvana. But first, especially for those who don't know him, Doc, I'd love to first thank you for coming on again and tell people a little bit about you so they know your background a little bit, and then we'll get into the book.
Sure. Happy to be here. Thank you. My first book is called The Riker Regimen, which I wrote, I published it in 2023, but that book took me about 10 years or so to actually write from start to finish. I'm a board certified surgical oncologist. I specialize in certain types of cancers, specifically breast cancer, melanoma, other skin cancers, and another cancer type called sarcoma. I've been doing that for a while. And during that time, I noticed that a lot of my patients, other than having the cancer that they presented with to me in the office, they had other problems, and most of those problems were some form of a chronic disease. The most common one was diabetes, or just being overweight combined with diabetes, type 2 diabetes. They would have high blood pressure, they'd have depression, they would have a lot of these other sort of chronic health issues that we would have to deal with sort of down the road after we would take care of their cancer, whether with an operation or otherwise. And so that sort of got me onto this journey of exploring the true root causes of not only why we get cancers, but the root cause of all these chronic diseases. And through that research and that process, what I've learned was that it is all about everything about our nutrition, what we eat on a daily basis, and what we drink, and some of our lifestyle choices that we make every single day.
It's no doubt. And Doc, can I just ask you something here? And it could be completely wrong, but as a father of a young child, I notice when kids have parties and they load up on sugar, they go from the highest high to the lowest low afterwards. And I would imagine not only with sugar, but good versus bad foods, it could be the same result for us, not only with our emotions, like the kids, but also physically, the ups and downs from it.
Yeah, sugar is addictive. It has addictive characteristics that act on the same receptors in our brains as crystal meth and crack cocaine. So there is no difference. It acts on the same receptor in our brain. So when we ingest anything with sugar in it, it hits those receptors in your brain and it says, I like this, I want more. Right. Just like the same thing as if you're, shooting up heroin or you're smoking crack.
No doubt. And, I want everyone to know, I'm doing a series with Doc here. It's going to be a couple of podcasts. Now, we may record them all at once. It's a lot of information. So we're only going to put it in, for an hour-long podcast. So if you see me on multiple podcasts and you see Doc on multiple podcasts with the same shirt, don't make a comment. It's because we're trying to record it all at once, but there's so much information. I want to give it to you in more digestible amounts at a time because we're all busy. It's hard to watch 3 hours at once, but you could watch 45 minutes to an hour at once.
Yeah, it can be a
And
bit overwhelming. There's so much that we can
yeah,
talk about in this book, whether it's the first book or the second book. I'm actually more excited about the second book because
yeah,
it was a lot easier for me to publish this second book. It only took me 2 years for the second book
mm,
from the first one because I had all of this information that took me years and years to research and to get on paper with the first book. And then by the time I finished the second book, there was a lot of new information that had come out. And
yes,
I think one of the other reasons it didn't take me as long is that, you become a better writer in the process
yeah.
of gathering the information and then update. So it's really a second book called Nutritional Nirvana is an update of more revised, more recent data
Correct.
from the first book.
Correct. And for those who may not know, and many of you do, the reason I have so much confidence in Dr. Riker is I actually have experience with him. My wife was diagnosed with breast cancer. And for those who know, you're going to hear the same story again. A dear friend said, if you don't go to Dr. Riker, and she's in the medical world, she said, if you don't go to Dr. Riker, I'll never speak to you again. So, of course, I went to Dr. Riker. And long story short, Dr. Riker, myself, and my wife, we worked together like we were a family. We made decisions like we were a family. And we went from thinking she was going to need 5 years of those, I could be saying it wrong, the chemo pills, to not needing them at all because Doc saved her. He saved our family, as I say, because he saved my wife from breast cancer. So that's why he's here. And I've read the book, Nutritional Nirvana. I believe it's available on Amazon.
Here it
Perfect.
is.
It's a great book, and I'm going to ask you the toughest question ever. Why the title Nutritional Nirvana? And you already kind of got into why you wrote the second book and what your goals are with this book.
Well, I liked it. It's sort of a catchy title, and I didn't want to basically say it's Riker Regimen 2.0. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
there was a lot of updated information in here, and sort of, we talk about what is nirvana. It's sort of achieving that ultimate goal in our lives, achieving nirvana. And so I thought that it would be a good title that's appropriate for trying to continually improve our diet and our nutrition and our lifestyles
Yep.
towards the elimination and even reversal of all these chronic diseases.
And that's key. The reversal.
Yeah,
So there are many people out there, and I've had family members who felt this way, that thought once they got some ailment, once they had some disease, once they had high blood pressure, once they had high cholesterol, they could never get rid of it.
right.
And I agree with you as a non-doctor,
Yeah.
but you as a doctor believe that's bogus, that you
It's
can.
absolutely wrong. And this is how
Yeah.
we were all taught, of course. And
Mhm.
many of us think that, say, take one of the very common things, such as high blood pressure. High blood pressure is completely controllable, not only just controllable, it's completely reversible. You can eliminate high blood pressure very easily. So instead of going to the doctor and going on a blood pressure pill, which is by far the most common treatment, is just prescribing a blood pressure pill
Yeah.
to bring down, your blood pressure. You can control that and eliminate any evidence of hypertension by changing your diet and your lifestyle.
Yep. And there's a saying that I'm old school. I don't particularly love sayings. There's this saying, and you see it online all day long. Google is your friend.
Yeah,
When it comes to health, can you please explain to people? Yes, I believe you agree that individuals need to take control of their health. They have to educate themselves, because as we'll get into, and I know you agree, most doctors don't even know nutrition real well.
no,
But Google isn't always your friend when it comes to nutrition. Can you expand on that and discuss that?
yeah. It's really hard to go onto the internet nowadays and to figure out what's truth, what's
Hmm.
fake, what's misinformation. And in this age of, say, social media with, Instagram and TikTok, everybody's sort of looking for the quick answer, the quick
Yeah.
fix to things. And the classic example of that recently or now is using these GLP-1 agonists, with
Yeah.
Ozempic being the sort of the most popular of the bunch. So here we are in 2026, and there it is, the most popular
Yeah.
prescribed medication on the market in over the last 2 to 3 years' time,
Hmm. Hmm.
with these companies profiting from the production of GLP-1 agonists in the multi billions of dollars.
Yeah.
One medication, one drug, a GLP-1 agonist, that I can tell you is sort of the poster child for what we are looking for as a society in terms of just getting a quick fix and going to your doctor and having them prescribe this and thinking everything is going to be okay as a result of that.
Right.
And I use that as an example because the data is now coming out that you can't stay on Ozempic forever. You
Yeah.
got to come off it at some point, and there is a long list of adverse side effects of staying on these GLP-1 agonists, ranging from gastroparesis, GI problems, to muscle problems. You get muscle wasting.
Right.
There is a longer list we're just starting to realize from these GLP-1 agonists that are utilized longer term. And so there is no substitute. There is no such thing as a quick fix. There's another saying out there: if it seems too good to be true, it probably is.
You know, it almost reminds me of when I was growing up as an athlete, and everyone wanted the quick fix to become amazingly strong and powerful and fast. And you saw them, you know, and I turned it down. We saw so many of them take a ton of steroids. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, it's a different thing, but in the mindset to get to that point quicker with less work and the side effects that I saw individuals go through that I never went through. And yeah, their performance skyrocketed. And the minute they got off of it, their muscles broke down, they broke down,
Yeah.
and you saw them, they could not keep up with what they had gained. They lost immediately. And it almost reminds me of that with a lot of these weight loss ideas, because my brother, who God rest his soul, was very heavy set. He would do these things. He'd lose a ton of weight artificially, as I call it. And
Yeah.
I'm not trying to insult anyone who's fighting, their weight. My brother did his whole life. I loved him. Um, but I watched him lose a ton of weight, get off of it, gain a ton of weight back, which is also unhealthy.
Well, it's the same thing with Ozempic, and I use Ozempic, but there's several others on the market, of course. So what happens is if you come off Ozempic, the same thing happens. The data shows that you gain not only all of the weight back within a year's time, but you also gain more weight. And
Yeah.
so the key difference with a drug like Ozempic is that you haven't changed your mentality in terms of how you view
Correct.
your food choices on a
Hmm.
long-term basis. And until you fix the psychological aspects of your interactions with food, what you're eating, when you're eating, and things of that nature, there is no substitute for that, and there is no such thing as just taking this weekly shot once a week. Now, I would say that there is probably a role for the super obese that have
Yes.
hundreds of pounds overweight, as a way to get them started in terms of weight reduction, but it has to be combined with
Correct.
the other aspects of weight loss, which is really the basic premise of this book. It's really not about weight loss. It's about living a healthier life through better nutritional and dietary changes that we can all
No
make.
doubt. No doubt. You know, it really, if you think about it now, as I'm hearing it, it's the same story for any overindulgence, whether it's an
Yeah,
alcoholic, an overeater, or a drug addict. You can go into rehab for 28 days, but if you're not going to change the way you are when you come out, the 28 days ends up going away. You were good for 28 days. The
yeah,
thing is, you have to change the way you do the way you run your life, whether it is indulgence with food or anything else.
sure.
And I want to discuss, and this is,
And let me make a point on that, because
go, please.
it's such an important point. Is we as physicians just simply, in our busy lives as doctors, I cannot spend an hour with each patient talking to them about how they need to change their relationship with food. And it's a really important conversation to have, but I'm employed, and my value to the organization is how many cases and operations that I do
Right.
in a week's time.
Right.
So unfortunately, we were never trained and built to have that conversation with
No.
patients about how to change their lifestyle, what nutritional changes they should be making, because we just weren't trained to do that. We're much more trained how to treat disease, and really are not well trained on how to prevent disease, especially chronic
Yep.
diseases.
And you know what? Before anyone gets upset at the so-called system, understand what Doc is also saying. If Doc took an hour each patient, say he's got 12 patients a day, how many less patients can he see and save? So there's yes, the system, and we're going to get into, and this is why Doc and I are doing this. He can now have this video and he can give it to his patients so they can do the work on their own. But he recorded it once. He wrote a book once. He can hand them the book and go read this at home. And I suggest you do that. I read it, and I'm going to tell you a lot of the things he has in there. I had been doing for years, and a lot I did not know, especially certain foods. And I've been doing them now. And these certain foods, I feel different, and I know my body, but I can tell you, the system isn't built for doctors to be able to train you. And what I wanted to discuss, Doc, is now when it comes to healthcare spending, how it's skyrocketing. A lot of it has to do with diet. I know you and I agree on that. You've told me that as a professional. I'm just a guy with eyes and ears who looks at how society has changed and how diseases are skyrocketing in many cases. And do you think a lot of the problem is that the forces and even the dietary models were resistant to change? Do you think that's a large reason for the issues?
Oh, absolutely. Remember, we all were born and raised on the food pyramid.
Yeah.
Really published with no specific nutritional science behind it. It was put together by a bunch of politicians and lobbyists
Right.
back in the day, and there's multiple articles written about this. That once we implemented the USDA guidelines for the what we know as the food pyramid, that's when all of our problems started in the United States in terms of skyrocketing rates of diabetes, of obesity, of hypertension, and of all these chronic diseases, such as inflammation and even cancers. So there's a linear correlation that when we started with this food pyramid to give everybody in the nation our recommendations based on what the politicians and food lobbyists wanted us to do. It's not surprising at all that, we are now in an epidemic and really a pandemic of worldwide diabetes, hypertension, metabolic syndrome, and cancer as a result.
Yeah. And folks, I want you to understand, I know that everything nowadays has gotten political, and now the food pyramid has gotten political, but not for me and Doc. Okay. We couldn't care less about politics. We care about facts. And I can tell you, I knew from a long time ago the food pyramid didn't work for me as an athlete. I never felt right when I followed those ideas.
Yeah.
And it's nice to see, and we're going to discuss through the series a lot of the studies that show it is wrong. It does not work right, and the reasons why. In many instances, Doc named one of them, but in the reasons why that food pyramid existed to begin with, and a lot of it had nothing to do with health.
Yeah.
Now, in your experience, Doc, with the patients, I want to really stress this. Okay, physical health links to mental health, and vice versa. People
Sure.
forget about one and wonder why the other is being affected.
They really go hand in hand. So anybody can tell you that the root cause of depression is really being unhealthy in the physical sense, and there is an axis between our gut, which goes directly up into our brain, which we know exists. And so one of the important aspects of that I talk about in my book is having what's called a healthy gut microbiome.
Hmm.
So it's basically feeding your gut bugs healthy things that are going to make them happy. And what they do in return is send these signals up to the brain to make you much more mentally healthy, per se. And what that does is create sort of this mind body link together for overall better health.
Now, let me ask you the system as a whole, and I think not only do you know, but I think everyone now knows this.
You're talking about
Is it?
the healthcare system?
Yeah, yeah. Is
Yeah.
it built as I think we've kind of covered it already, but I want to push this because I want individuals to take the power of their diet to themselves. Like the system is not built to attack the cause. It's to treat
No,
the issues.
the healthcare system, you got to understand, is not a big healthcare, not a big business. It's huge business in the United States. It is, it's over 20% of our national GDP,
Yeah.
which is some gigantic number, which is in the trillions of dollars.
It's a
And
Goliath.
it's not, there's these myths in healthcare, and I point out 5 myths in my book. But probably the biggest myth in healthcare is that healthcare is about healing. Healthcare is not about healing. Go to any healthcare system in this country, and it's about maximizing profit for every
Mhm.
single patient who walks through the door. Let me say that again. It's not about making you better or healthier. It's about extracting as much money from each patient possible, whether it's
Mhm.
through blood tests, whether it's through an operation, whether it's through a procedure. Many of these are unnecessary and could be completely eliminated from healthcare costs throughout the nation. So I point this out because it is striking to me how we say you're a patient, go to the hospital. There's certain things that healthcare is great for. You're in a car accident, there's no better system in the world than the
Right.
trauma system in the United States, as an example. You break a bone, you're in a bad car accident, and you're messed up. This is the place to be. However,
Right.
if you are a type 2 diabetic going to your
Right.
primary care doctor, I can assure you that 9 out of 10 doctors are completely mismanaging how to take care of that patient with type 2 diabetes. And I say
No
that
doubt.
strongly because what they're doing is just basically doing the norm, which is to prescribe either a pill, which is usually metformin, which will reduce your blood sugars over time, or give you insulin. So they're treating your diabetes absolutely incorrectly by giving you those medications.
Yeah, it's the conflict of interest, as we've spoken about within the industry. But also, look, you nailed the human part of it too. That even an individual like yourself who wants your patients to get better for good, there is no way with how many patients you have to treat that you can
Yeah.
sit with them for an hour each and make sure they understand all of these new choices, probably out of your book. That
Yeah.
I don't. I'm not
It's
talking
just,
about myself like I'm a hero. I knew some because I've always studied.
yeah,
Most people know none of what we're going to cover. But
I
I mean,
know.
it is amazing how little they know.
This
And I don't
is,
mean that as an insult.
it is not an insult to your normal average patient because they don't know any better. And why would they?
Right.
They get our information from different places, but that's really not the point. This is the most frustrating part of medicine for me. When I know that this patient who's sitting across from me that I need to operate on for a cancer is not going to die of their early cancer. I can take care of that from a surgical perspective. And 8 out of 10 are going to be cured from that operation, and that cancer is never going to come back. At the same time, when I'm looking at this patient who is 20, 30, 40 pounds overweight with diabetes, hypertension, depression, joint pain, needs a joint replacement, whether it's a knee or a hip, and they're getting up in their age, I know that what's going to kill that patient is the diabetes and the other chronic diseases in their life. And it's very
Yeah,
frustrating for me because I know the answer for that patient is in this book.
it is.
It is not
It
in an
is.
operation. It is not in a prescription that I'm giving them. And it is not in anything else that I'm going to do for them other than they need
Mhm.
to sit down, read this book, and implement some of those changes, which will reverse the vast majority of all of their
Yeah.
chronic diseases.
You know, and I'm going to throw something out there to give people a little shock, okay? To let them understand. They're going to read your book and they're going to go, "What?" on some things. I want some people out there to hear this and understand this. When you're eating salads and vegetables, a lot of it is good. Guess what? Some of it is terrible for you. And I
Correct.
found out the hard way as a younger athlete. I was eating, as we used to joke, sawdust. I ate so clean, but I was eating certain vegetables that were terrible for me. And
Yep.
I always had stomach issues. And I found out because I went through stomach issues as I was younger. And you've confirmed not only those vegetables that I used to eat in mass thinking they were great for me, but others, even at this age, that I was still eating that everyone raves about. And when you study them, you go, that is not good for a human body. And you connect the dots to explain why. And we're going to get
Yep.
into those. I just wanted to throw that out there so people realize there's no way you can teach someone this in an hour who's never tried all of this.
Correct.
Yeah, it's impossible. So my
It,
suggestion is read the book
yep.
and implement one thing at a time.
Correct.
Every
Yep.
day, if you implement one new thing, by the time the month is over, you've changed everything. And we're not telling you to eat foods that aren't tasty. Believe me, you're going to actually love what you're eating.
You're
You're
right.
just not going to believe what's bad for you.
It's a process. And I
Yeah.
like to make the point that it's a lifelong process.
Yes.
Small, itty bitty changes on a daily basis towards the better add up. It's like little
Hmm.
wins every single day. You get a little better. You improve your diet a little bit. This is
Hmm.
clearly not about perfection. It's
No,
about tweaking what's really been bad in previous in your lifestyle and diet, getting rid of some of those things and implementing positive nutritional change. Any
100%.
single person can do this. It is not difficult, but I would say that you've got to begin. Step one is just having the commitment for
Correct.
change in your life.
And don't be that guy or that gal who hadn't gone to the gym in 3 years, and then you go back and you work out 4 hours a day until you give up 3 days later.
Correct.
Do it step by step. And you know, this brings me to a great question. Everyone is arguing, understandably, about how expensive healthcare is. So I'm going to ask Doc, and I'm just putting it out there for all of you to think about. Would healthcare not go down in cost if every family today looked at each other and said, you know what, we're going to work together to eat healthier so we can bring our healthcare costs down, in turn, bring our community's healthcare costs down, our society, our nation, our world's healthcare costs down? If each family said to each other, let's work together, let's figure this out, there's the beginning of the end of the skyrocketing costs. And I would even go further. And Doc, I want you to not only answer that, but answer this. Wouldn't you think it could possibly help if the healthcare companies gave incentives for better dietary lifestyles?
That's such a loaded question. So,
Yeah,
yes. So,
that's why I threw it out there.
so tell me why a healthcare company or a healthcare system would want me to spend an hour with a patient. Tell me why they would want me to do that. And
No,
that hour is spent about changing their nutritional habits,
right.
eating healthier, exercising, the
No,
basics of what we would
no.
normally, tell a patient to do who is, you say, overweight a bit and has a few chronic diseases.
Right.
What's the interest of that healthcare system to do that and to take 1 hour of my time as a surgeon that I could be spending in the operating room making money for that system
Right.
versus spending 1 hour in the office and talking to them about implementing nutritional change?
So I'm all about hope.
It's a rhetorical question.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
not,
all
it's not
about
gonna,
hope,
it's
but
not gonna
I'm going to
happen.
have to say zero.
Correct. They don't have, there's no
Unless I got an
financial
idea.
interest for me to spend the time
I,
with
I,
that patient.
I think I've solved it. I have literally just solved it. I am calling on all health insurance companies to invest in healthy food production companies, in
They
farms
talk
that
a
do
big
organic
game, but
foods,
they never do it. There
so
is
they can sell the product.
there has been talk for years and years that in insurance companies, healthcare insurance companies will
Yeah,
reimburse us for having these discussions with patients. I've been
yeah,
doing this 25 plus years, and I have yet to see any reimbursement for the extra time that I spent talking to a patient about changing their diet and their lifestyle.
correct,
It's not going to
correct.
happen.
And I'm going to tell you that's why I asked the question. I want everyone
Yeah.
to realize it would make total sense for that to be done, and yet it's not being done. And I'm not throwing anger at these companies because we get to choose our diet, and they're cashing in on bad choices. Uh,
Well, they
so,
are. It's remember, it's
yeah,
not just the
yeah,
healthcare system, it's every
no,
food company out there, it's every
every food company.
lobbyist, all the junk food, brands, everything is related to profit margins and making money. So let's go back to one point you made, though, is about responsibility. Who's
Mhm.
responsible for your health? Tell me.
Right here, right
It's
here.
yourself, right? You
That's
you
right.
can blame others that it's not your fault for, why you're 20 pounds overweight, but at the end of
Correct.
the day, it's about taking personal responsibility for what you're eating and more importantly, how you can change that. And so that's
Yep.
really what I like most about this book is that it's not, it's not the gospel, but it can get you headed in the right direction just by reading a book.
That's
And
it.
so, I've done all the research for you.
Yeah.
You just got to pick it up and read it. And there
Yep.
is so many good things in here that will get you on that road, onto that journey of better quality
Hmm.
living, just through a very, I think, very easy nutritional changes in your life.
They're very simple. The book is easy to read in the sense that Doc not only mentions a point of view, he backs it up with studies and he connects the conversation to certain foods that are good and bad, certain things that are causing issues, and he connects those dots to where some of these additives in our food system are coming from and how to avoid them.
Yeah,
Um, and
I
I think it's
do.
key. And go
Yeah,
ahead,
I
Doc.
think it's important to, as you said, I don't just give bland sort of
Yeah,
broad information in here about, eat more vegetables, stuff like
no,
that. I don't
no,
do that. I really go into detail into why you should or should not eat certain things.
correct.
Why, and it's all backed up with science, it's backed up with published data and literature. And so I go into a lot of detail in that. So it's very sort of easy to read and to take in and say, yeah. And I even have a lot of bullet points and lists in there of
Hmm.
things you should eat, things you shouldn't eat, what you should be doing, what you shouldn't be doing. And it just
Hmm.
makes it, I think, for sort of a great way to start to improve your overall health and lifestyle.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny, and I think it's important to cover. Let me just say this, and my brother would be the first one here if he was still with us to mention this, to say it out loud, and to be honest about it. We were both about the same height. I was in shape, came from the same family, same parents. I generally hovered around 190 pounds. He generally hovered anywhere from 300 plus.
Wow.
It does not have to be he even hit 400 pounds at one point. It is not a
Yeah,
DNA thing.
it's
It
that.
is not, it is a life. Look, I'm not, as I mentioned very often, obviously growing up, I looked at Arnold Schwarzenegger and I says, wow, that guy's got some genetics, but that's different. What we're talking about is health issues. Just
Yeah.
because your parents had something doesn't mean 100% of the time you have to have those issues. My brother had tons of ailments that my mother and my father had that I never have. I've never
Yep.
had them. I never will have them, probably, God hope. And my brother be the first one to say, he put the time in, I did it.
I would say one of the biggest changes that we've seen over the decades, going back, say, into the 40s, 50s, and 60s, was smoking. It's a
Yeah.
great example. If you remember, my parents were smokers. Everybody I
Everybody
knew,
was.
all the parents were smokers and drinkers too, for that matter. And that is the leading cause of course, for many years, and even today, if you want to look at lung cancer, for if you're a smoker, you know your chances of developing a lung cancer dramatic, they skyrocket. And so one of the biggest positive changes is, to cut out smoking in your life. Those are the two big easy ones. Cut out drinking, and we're talking about
Yeah.
heavy drinking and alcohol
Right.
use, and then smoking. And
Mhm.
so that's just two great examples of what I would view as easy, relatively easy lifestyle changes that can greatly impact the prevention of developing several different cancers, including lung cancer, esophageal cancer, all types of other cancers
Mhm.
as a result of alcohol use.
No doubt. No doubt. And again, like Doc said, he's talking about excessive. My brother was a smoker. My brother loved
Yeah.
his scotch. Smoking is terrible for you.
Yeah, it's
Anybody who
horrible.
thinks any form, yeah, anybody who thinks any form is great. Well, one of my buddies finally realized that even marijuana smoking, you're inhaling smoke. Okay.
Correct.
You might feel that marijuana is a healthy product if that's what you want to discuss. Okay. But he's inhaling smoke and he's got this chronic cough now ever since he did this. And now he's getting rid of it because he doesn't want that chronic cough. Now, all of a sudden, 3, 4 weeks later, his cough is going away.
Yeah, of
And that's only
course.
3, 4 weeks
Yeah.
because it's the inhaling of the smoke. But I wanted to get into, and again, this is kind of, you're going to probably laugh how simple this question is. What is cancer? How's it caused?
Sure.
What's the origin? Is it linked to the origin of life? I believe I was reading in your book.
It is. And without getting into too much complexity, uh, it's a great question. And, a lot of my patients think that we've solved that mystery of what causes cancer.
Yeah.
And the answer is we haven't. But I can tell you that after all the research that I've done recently and before, and this is what I do every day, is take care of cancer patients. The underlying root cause for the development of most cancers is actually quite simple, and it's chronic low grade inflammation in our bodies. You say, okay, well, how do we get chronic low grade inflammation? You guessed it, all the stuff we eat and all the lifestyle choices we make. For instance, one of the most potent stimulators in our body for chronic inflammation, guess what that is? Sugar.
Yeah.
Sugar intake. It's like a nuclear bomb going off in your body every time you eat something with a lot of sugar in it.
Uh-huh.
So sugar is one of the root causes for the development of cancers, believe it or not. A
Yeah.
multitude of cancers, over 16 different type of cancers, is related to chronic overconsumption of sugar.
Mm-hmm.
So there's one thing. Uh, so what else causes chronic inflammation? The perfect example is smoking cigarettes. Every time you smoke a cigarette, you're chronically inhaling the smoke, which causes chronic low-grade inflammation in your lungs. And when you get this is over years and years, those cells, say in your lung from the smoking, they change. They can't repair all of the DNA damage that's done day after day, year after year. So at some point they can't keep up with those repairs, and so those cells, they change. And they change from a normal cell into a cancer cell as a result of that.
And Doc, is that unicell versus multicell, or am I
Yeah,
incorrect? Look, you
that is
see, I
correct.
read the book,
So
folks. I read the book.
So we are multicellular organisms, right? So if you take
Mhm.
an organ like the lung, which is a great example, it's a multicellular organ in our bodies, the lung, just like the liver is, our spleen, our brain, etc. So the multicell after this chronic year after year uh, inflammation that it keeps getting day after day, converts and reverts back to a unicellular organism. And it's the unicellular organism which is only, they think about two things: survival and how do they survive, and how can they grow and reproduce. That's it.
Yep.
And those are the tenets of what a cancer cell is.
Yeah. And it's funny, and you don't need to name all of them, but the top 10 causes of death in America. And when I said it's funny, give me a second. I don't mean the top 10 causes are funny. What do they have in common? Do they have anything in common? Because I think
Yeah.
and you don't need to name them all because there's 10. And I bet most people already know what
Seven
we're going
out
to
of the
say.
10, I can remember that, Chad, when I wrote that, as 7 out of the
Yeah.
10 top causes of death in the United States and even worldwide are related to exactly that, some form of introducing chronic inflammation into the body.
Yep.
7 out of the 10 top causes.
Yep. I had a very close friend, very thin, built in shape, worked out like a madman. His entire life was at the time, and this has to be maybe 5 years ago, maybe 50 years old. I mean, unbelievably in shape.
Yep.
But he drank a lot and he smoked
alcohol,
a lot.
right?
Yep.
Yep.
And he drank beer. He was already retired at 50. He was a heavy beer drinker. He'd be the first one to tell you that.
Yep.
He liked doing what he was doing, and he had a stroke, and he's no
Yep.
longer with us. And
It's
I'm
horrible.
telling you, I said to him beforehand, I said, I love you, man. Look, I like to have a drink here and there, but something I'm not, look, I can't say I'm a doctor and I know that's what caused it, but I was telling him from day one, I was afraid that heavy drinking every day, you can't just drink 4, 5, 6, 7 beers a day for 20 years, 30 years and think it's not going to get you one way or the other. At best, it's going to make your life very uncomfortable.
So chronic alcohol consumption also is the second biggest cause of total body low grade and chronic inflammation. So drinking, and I'm not talking about having a glass of wine or two at dinner or several, a few times a week. That's no big deal. Don't even think about it. It's the chronic over consumption of alcohol. And I'll extend that. It's the chronic overconsumption of junk food.
Yes.
It's the chronic overconsumption of carbohydrates. Too many carbs per day. It's the chronic overconsumption of sugar.
Which is in all of those things.
Correct.
Massively.
So they all go hand in hand.
Those.
So, and just to sum it up, it's the chronic overconsumption of low nutrition foods that are really adding to this chronic inflammation that is building up in our bodies over time.
The overindulgence of garbage. You can't keep throwing garbage in the system and think it's going to run like a Ferrari. It's not.
It's just not going to, it just doesn't work that way.
I was reading in there too about, and I won't lie to you, I cannot remember the exact explanation about ketogenic metabolic therapy.
Yeah.
But I felt at the time it was important to go over it. You tell me if it is or not, because I'm no doctor. But I remember, or maybe it was just a big impressive word, and I felt I should write it down to impress myself.
So it's definitely not mainstream, but more and more data is coming out about the utilization of dietary changes, of a whole nutritional change with a patient who's got, say, brain cancer, as an example. There's some early studies in the 60s and 70s showing that if you give a cancer patient a very high fat, healthy fat, saturated fat diet, that's like 70 to 80% fats, a little tiny bit of protein. So it's mainly fats, number one, protein, and almost virtually no carbohydrates, that type of lifestyle or nutritional lifestyle can effectively help treat and even reverse some of these cancers.
Uh-huh.
even in their advanced stages. So that's what I mean by a ketogenic
Hmm.
metabolic therapy. It's treating cancer with a metabolic treatment instead of a drug or anything that we were able to prescribe. Is changing, and oftentimes you can shrink tumors down by simple nutritional changes in your diet.
And a lot of people immediately when they hear fats, and we're
Yeah,
going to get into it in more detail, but if you could just give a brief understanding, folks, the fats he's talking about are not clogging your arteries. There
no,
are healthy fats that even feed our brain, if I remember correctly, from my limited knowledge in this part of
yeah,
health. And Doc, if you could just give because we're going to get into it in more
right.
detail, just briefly
So,
let them understand. It's not the fat's going to clog your arteries. That's
so
not what he
the
would ever
old,
tell you to do.
so remember, so you got to just completely forget about and eliminate everything you learned about the old food pyramid. Remember,
Mhm.
the commercials, everything was about low fat, low cholesterol, right? It's the exact opposite is what is true. And that's one of the things that I like most about the new RFK Jr. and
Mhm.
Dr.
Mhm.
Oz, who have has flipped the food pyramid upside down
Right.
and for the better. So now at the top of the food pyramid, where you say the bottom, the healthiest thing that you should be eating are healthy saturated fats as a
Mhm.
very important part of a healthy diet.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
second is proteins. So the classic example of, say, a healthy saturated fat is an avocado.
Correct.
So an avocado is absolutely wonderful. It should be in everybody's daily diet. It's the best example of a healthy saturated fat.
It's
Whole
beautiful.
milk. Yeah,
Right. And it just lets people right there. It lets people understand. You're thinking of a different type of saturated fat. If you
correct.
think an avocado is going to clog your heart up, it's not.
It's not at
There, it
all.
it just it
And the
spells it out.
studies
And
bear that
anyone who
out.
knows that,
All the recent
no,
studies bear that out. There's no relationship to another thing that is misinformation, and that is your total cholesterol level and the link
yeah,
to heart disease.
yeah,
Complete
yeah.
nonsense.
We need
And so,
cholesterol.
yeah, we absolutely need cholesterol. So
Hmm.
the what I like is the way the food pyramid recently has changed, and so now at the base of the food pyramid, you've got healthy saturated fats,
Hmm.
followed by healthy, uh, high quality proteins in our diet, and that should be the foundation of all of our nutritional needs on a daily basis.
And don't worry, we're going to get into specifics, folks, about
Yeah.
the healthy proteins. We're going to get into that. Doc, one of the things that really got to me as seeing my wife had gotten breast cancer, and if you looked at her, she was healthy, she's in shape, and all of a
Mhm.
sudden she comes down with breast cancer. Was the migrant effect and our risk of breast cancer in America compared to other parts of the world?
Yeah. There's some very interesting studies out there, and the
Mhm.
ones that I actually put in the book, or a couple of them, are if you take a woman from Japan or China for that matter, and they migrate and they come over, they leave Japan and they come over and they start living in California, for example, and that's their new home in California, whether they're from China or from Japan. What that the studies show, and they follow these women, and what they show is that their risk, just because of them moving from one country to another, their risk for developing breast cancer goes up.
Yeah.
You can say, well, why in the world would that be? Well, the only logical conclusion from all of those studies was that their diets changed. So the stuff that they were eating in Japan, for instance, fresh seafood
Hmm.
and seaweed, and even how they ate changed
Right.
dramatically
Right.
when they came to the United States, to the so-called new food pyramid, or the old food pyramid, where you needed 3 square meals a day, which, with the base being 5 to 11 servings of bread, pasta, and rice.
Yeah.
And so, which was, just way too many carbs on a daily basis. So what the conclusions of all these studies showed was that if you move from one country and say you move to the United States, your incidence of multiple different cancers goes up as well. And the studies that I quoted in the book are in particular breast cancer.
Hmm. It's amazing. And if you look at some of the places that are the healthiest,
Yeah,
they take in a lot of saturated fats with olive oils, with with avocado,
yeah,
things like that that were never a mainstay in most American diets.
never. Yeah.
And it just, and even down to some little things that we can throw in. My mother-in-law is very funny. She makes one of the worst tasting waters that we have all the healthy things in, and we just take a shot of it in the morning. We're like, you know
Yeah.
what? Let's get it over with. Let's put them all in. So I want to discuss some of those things. Turmeric, uh, and curcumin. Am I saying it correctly?
Curcumin, yeah.
Curcumin.
But they're pretty much synonymous, so we can say one or the other. Turmeric's
Right.
easier to pronounce.
Yeah. And ginger and garlic and a lot of
Well,
cinnamon, I believe, also
yeah.
from, or am I misstating?
Well, those things are important, and the reason I mention all of those things are that they're very potent anti-inflammatory, natural
Hmm.
anti-inflammatories. So if you can get them in foods, excellent. If you're not getting enough in the foods, there's supplements obviously out there that we need to add in, such as turmeric, which is wonderful. So if you can't get enough in foods, you can get it in a supplement. Let me go
Sure.
back to a bigger point, and that was who lives the longest in the world. And I talk a lot about this in the book, and we probably get to it, but
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
have a whole chapter on longevity. And in that chapter, I talk about there's certain populations in the world that are what we call blue zones. There's two or three books written about blue zones, and the researchers went to these different areas in the world and really tried to figure out what they all had in common in terms of why these folks were living well into their 90s and even into the
Hmm.
beyond 100 years old. And what they found was, sure enough, it's the nutrition of what they were eating on a regular basis. But it wasn't all about nutrition. Some of it was some more subtle things like having a purpose
Yeah.
in life, like getting up every
Hmm.
morning and going out for a walk or going to the community center or having a job or gardening. There was something that would link them to why they ought to be getting up in the morning, that sense of community. So that was
Yep.
really important. And then going back to the nutrition, almost all of these had in common was healthy saturated fats,
Hmm.
whether it was olive oil from Italy. Uh, Two or three of the blue zones actually are in certain towns and cities in Italy. There's
Yes.
another blue zone on some of the Japanese island, Okinawa.
Hmm. Hmm.
And what do they have in common? They eat a lot of fresh fish.
Yeah.
They have very little carbohydrate consumption or sugar consumption for that matter. And they eat a relatively low number of total calories per day,
Right.
which sort of gets into the importance of calorie restriction and intermittent fasting, even.
Right.
So
We don't need,
all these different blue zones have many of these things in common as the common thread as to why they live so long and healthy too.
yeah, we don't need as many calories as we were told. I've generally weighed the same weight pretty much most of my life. I range between 190-ish, a little bit, because I do work out. I have a little more size to me than the standard guy my height. But I can tell you this, I've stayed the same weight, even though for the longest of periods of time, I have completely reduced my calories. So for
Yeah,
those out there who are athletic and want to still stay big, you have been told you need more calories than you do.
correct.
Try it. I know huge guys,
It's
280,
yeah,
300-pound guys who are football linemen who've come to this notion of less calories, and they're in better shape, but they're still the same size. They have not shrunk. It, your body is getting rid of all that excess food, but you're taking those calories and it's not affecting your body in a positive way.
Correct.
And
So it's, yeah, it's
go ahead,
definitely
please.
more than, this old adage of calories in equals calories out. It's the quality of the calories that you're taking in that's really ultimately the most important thing. It's not just a calorie is not just a calorie. It depends on where
Mhm.
the calorie and the quality of the food that it comes from.
Exactly right. And I want, here comes some of the vegetables. We're starting now. Some of the nuts, where throughout our life we thought were very healthy things. If you can explain legumes, lectins, the
Yep,
leaky gut side effects, as well as peanuts, and forgive me, I have to read these words, so I'm looking down.
yep,
Aflatoxins, if am
yep,
I saying that correct?
yep,
Tree nuts and side effects. A
yep.
lot of people do not know this. I did not know this.
So let's start with peanuts because peanuts fall under the general umbrella, what we call a legume. A legume, for simple terms, is a bean. So a peanut is a bean. It grows on a vine on the ground, from the ground, really. So we're talking about peanuts is a type of bean. All right. So you got all your other beans, lentil beans and
Mhm.
soybeans and all these different beans across the market and across the world. And, beans have a purpose and a function. The reason we harvest so many beans in the world is to feed everybody.
Correct.
It's a cheap way of feeding the world's population. And from that perspective, you can say, well, beans can't be all that bad. We're feeding people. I get it. But we're talking about quality again of the foods that we take in. And when we talk about beans in general, any category within the bean legume uh, area, we're talking about these toxins that they contain. And mainly the main two are lectins and phytotoxins. So
Right.
these are toxins that are within the bean themselves. And then when we ingest them, as we said before, they cause chronic low grade
Mhm.
inflammation, mainly in our gut, in our GI tract.
Correct.
And so the beans, ultimately, although the counter argument from everyone is it's a great source of protein, I can assure you there are better, higher quality sources of protein than what when compared to beans and lectins, without
Yeah.
the inflammatory side effect of eating those beans. So
Correct.
unfortunately, peanuts and peanut butter fall under the category of legumes, and therefore I cannot condone eating or
Mhm.
consuming peanut butter or peanuts in any form whatsoever, as well as any of the other beans, such as kidney beans, lima beans, soybeans, etc.
And you know what? It might not fall into the same category, but one of the ones that hit Jay, my wife, she was shocked, was edamame.
Yeah, edamame or beans.
Yeah, you think edamame, oh, healthy beyond belief. I
Yeah,
can't tell you how much edamame, and I don't like it. I've
yeah,
eaten over all these years thinking it was healthy to add into my salad,
of
healthy
course.
to add into basically anything, because we were told that it's healthy. And again, folks, Doc gives you studies also in the book.
Yep.
So he's not just saying, hey, this is what I know, just believe me, because I know the world we're in. Nobody wants to believe anyone. He not only tells you, look, I'm a doctor and I understand these things because I've studied them. Here's the studies
Yeah,
that have
I
shown
even
it.
say in my book, I'm like, don't
Mm.
believe me.
Right,
Here's the 6 or 7 references that I quote in there on all the
correct.
different studies showing the adverse effects of chronic consumption of legumes in the
Hmm.
human diet. They're not good for
Hmm.
you.
And we're going to get deeper eventually into the gut microbiome. I believe it is
So
correct.
I'll probably
That
get a lot of flack for this, but probably some of the, in terms of healthy versus unhealthy humans, probably all right. How do I say this? Some of the most, some of the
don't
most
worry, we can cut it.
some of the most unhealthy individuals in the United States and even worldwide are vegetarians.
Yes,
And the
yes,
reason I
and
say that is because
yes,
all they eat are beans and vegetables. that contain all of these toxins,
Right.
which over time you're accumulating that chronic low grade inflammation.
Right.
So
Right.
a lot of pure vegetarians will never eat a piece of meat. They won't eat
Right.
eggs as a source of protein per se, and they don't even eat fish sometimes. So I'm here to tell you that a vegetarian lifestyle is probably one of the unhealthiest lifestyles out there.
Yep. And realize Doc goes through the vegetables and the salads and what have you that are healthy
Yep.
for you. As a layman, I hear what he's saying. He's saying when you're a vegetarian, you only have vegetables. You're choosing all of them, just like I was when I was eating all
Yep.
these vegetables that I thought were great for me, and a nice section of them are they have toxins in them. They're terrible
They
for
do.
you. And we're going to go, and the book gets into heavy detail. If we discussed the whole book, it wouldn't only just be 3 podcasts; it would be 40 of them. So you got to get the book. And like I said, every day you implement something new and you take something out. So now you heard
Yeah.
a couple of things you can take out, but still eat vegetables, but take out.
I got easy
Um,
lit. I make easy
you do,
bullet point lists of things you
you
should
do.
be eating. Say in terms of vegetables, there's the nightshades that you can eat some
Hmm. Hmm.
versus other ones that have a high lectin content to them.
Yep. And folks, again, his book is available on Amazon,
Yeah.
Nutritional Nirvana by Dr. Adam Riker. And also, he has supplements. We're going to get to discussing them later on, but they're available on Shopify. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
And I'm
On
taking them, and I've loved them. The
Rikerregimen.com.
Riker regimen. But we're not done yet. I just wanted to let you all know because I do believe in them. And you mentioned in the book teas, how they reduce inflammation, specifically the tips of the leaves,
Yeah.
green tea and what have you. And I thought that the history of the tips were great.
Yeah, I
Uh,
love that.
it and and if you can get a little bit into some of the teas that you suggest and why the tips of the tea leaves and not having them actually in a tea bag.
I think one of the healthiest things that any normal human being can do on a daily basis is have a cup of hot green tea once or twice a day. Period. It's just chock full of good stuff. And one of the main components within a great green tea is antioxidants. So
Right.
antioxidants are like these potent compounds that are found in green tea, and it's full of them that really help our body to kill off, say, precancerous type of
Mhm.
cells, dead cells, and create a much healthier cellular environment for all of our normal healthy cells. So I can't
Mhm.
recommend strongly enough to have 1 or 2 cups of hot green tea a day. So, and I would say that the quality of the tea matters. I'm not talking about Lipton tea. I don't even think that's green tea, actually.
Yeah.
I'm talking about some high quality tea, mainly from China. They're well known
Yeah.
for. There's certain types that come what we call free leaf, either
Mhm.
just the tips. One I prefer is called Dragon Well tea, which is just wonderful.
Dragon well. Mhm.
Yeah. And if you can get your hands on some of that, great. And you just take some of the tips of the tea leaves, you put them in the bottom of a cup, you add hot water to it, and you let it steep 3 or 4 minutes, and you're good to go. All the tea leaves float to the bottom and the tips. And the other type of really good tea with a slightly different taste is Japanese matcha green tea.
Yes.
Equally good, very great, very nice taste, more of a smoother taste with the Japanese teas. And whatever you prefer and whatever appeals to you more. But the important thing is maybe in place of eating lunch, I suggest in my
Yeah.
book is to have a cup of hot green tea every day instead.
I'll tell you what, I've done it. I love it. I was the guy who was convinced because I worked out so much. I was an athlete. You had to eat the 3 meals and the 3 snacks. And I was
Yeah,
eating a ton of food. Now I didn't
it's
get fat,
crazy.
but it's also because I was working out like a madman.
Yeah.
Um, but I stopped doing that. I didn't like the feel. And
Yes.
I didn't like working out with a heavy stomach. I
Yeah.
didn't like playing sports with a heavy stomach. So without even realizing I was doing it, there were a lot of days where I had just a little bit in the morning, and I even played double headers and only ate dinner at night, and I felt better. But then I got to the point where I didn't even want that breakfast in me.
Yeah.
And now as I've gotten older, most days I go coffee in the morning, and we're going to discuss the best way to have coffee.
Yeah.
Have a green tea in the middle of the day
Yeah. Yeah.
and just eat dinner, an early
Oh,
dinner.
that's great.
And I'll
Yeah.
tell you what, I haven't lost weight. I look better. I haven't lost
Yeah.
weight. I'm still the same weight, so
Yeah.
for those who are worried about that, I feel 1,000 times better. And again, I was a guy who ate healthy already, according to any measure that we
Yeah.
knew. But it's 1,000 times better. And you know what? You mentioned something before. I want to talk about calories in, calories out.
Yeah.
Can you just kind of, for those who do not know that term, can you just kind of briefly explain it?
So, yeah. So let's just talk about a calorie. So obviously, whatever we eat or drink, there's calories in it, right? Water
Hmm.
doesn't have any calories, but your any food or anything else in it's going to have some calories. So we all wake up in the morning and we will burn a certain amount of calories in a day's time, no matter what we do. It's just getting up and getting in the shower and doing your normal, going to work, all the steps in between. That amount of calories is called your basal metabolic rate. This doesn't have anything to do with any food or drink. It's just the amount of energy that you're going to burn in a single day. And for each of us, it's going to be slightly different. But take your average male, say, 60 kilograms, 65 kilograms, whatever, of whatever age. The amount of your basal metabolic rate will also depend on how much you exercise. That's all sort
Right.
of included in there, but it's going to be somewhere between 1,500 calories burned per day to up to maybe even up to 2,500 calories, sometimes a little bit more if you are working out, every day after
Uh,
work or 3 times a week. But there is a range. So the minimum calories that you're going to burn, if you ate no food, you're going to burn about 1,500 to 1,800 calories a day. And that's where they came up with these guidelines that we should eat 2,000 calories a day, your average human being.
mhm.
Now, I'm telling you, 2,000 to me is a bit high for your average human. It's probably closer to somewhere around 1,400 to 1,600, maybe 1,700 calories per day. So that's your basics. If you don't eat anything, you're going to burn that every day. And remember, it takes about to lose 1 single pound, you need to burn off 2,500 calories
Right.
in 1 pound of fat. So that's sort of the ins and outs of calories. And again, I'll go back to the point is it's not about how many calories you take in, it's about the quality of those calories that are taken in.
Correct. Now, the food pyramid, we discussed it already, but over the last handful of decades, I got to ask, in your opinion, again, as a non PhD, as a non doctor, I have an opinion. Do you not believe that the food pyramid is probably linked to the increase of obesity deaths in the last handful of decades?
I not that I don't even that I believe it. That's what the data says.
Hmm.
There is a multitude. I'm talking hundreds, if not thousands, of clinical trials and data published, peer-reviewed, evidence-based data that shows there is a linear correlation with the implementation of the food pyramid back in the early
Hmm.
1970s and the skyrocketing incidence of obesity, diabetes, childhood
Hmm. Yep.
diabetes, cancer incidence for over 16 types of cancer, all linked to the food pyramid implementation and guidelines for the United States.
No doubt.
It's
And the
clear that
sugar,
it's not, there
it,
is
it
no,
it's
yeah,
yeah,
there's no
it's
doubt.
almost emotional. It's kind of funny. I said to one of my friends who is starting to digest, no pun intended, this new way of eating. And I said to him, I said, it's almost like we're we're all suffering from Stockholm syndrome to the food pyramid. Like
Yes,
it's held us hostage for so long, we want to defend it.
Yeah,
Okay, no one's looking to insult anyone, and also, no, we're not. Doc and I are not saying every single person who is responsible for the food pyramid is the most evil person in the world. No, what we're also going to explain to you though is we probably had, and I could be wrong, too many people to feed, so the food pyramid kind of helped with feeding all those people because billions of people could not be fed any other way except mass production.
I guess that's, a valid point to be made about why did they implement those guidelines. But I can assure you that those
Okay,
guidelines were created by politicians going back to
no
George
doubt.
McGovern, by the way. It's all in
Mm-hmm.
my book, and
Mm-hmm.
also by every single food lobbyist
Yeah, no doubt.
out there. They
No
wanted to
doubt.
be within the food pyramid because look at the potential downstream profit generated if you could get your product into the base of that food pyramid. And that's exactly
Yep,
what they did. So
no doubt.
they lobbied the politicians to get into the base of the food pyramid, which is 5 to 11 servings of, say, bread, pasta, rice, grains, milk, and cheese. All of
Right.
those are at the base of the food pyramid. And so you had the introduction of all of these carbohydrates within these foods that were now being introduced into the American society.
Easy to produce, huge profits.
Yeah, easy to produce, huge profits. And then as you produce that mass production of these, the nutritional value of these, of take your typical slice of bread, would go
Mm-hmm.
down and down and down.
Yeah. And it's amazing. Sugar, especially in the United States, food production, sugar is in everything.
It is added
And
sugar.
it's unreal. And let me ask you, do you know where the US is ranked in sugar consumption?
It's in the top five for sure. I think it's
Yeah.
second or third. And I believe in my book, I point out that Mexico is way up there. I think they're number
Mm-hmm.
one now. It's
Yeah.
like 132 grams of sugar a day for a single individual in a single day. They're eating
Yeah.
over 100 grams of sugar. And United States is right up there around 120, 130 grams of sugar per day. So remember,
It's amazing.
one of those sugar packets contains 4 grams of sugar in it.
Yeah. Now think about that. A sugar packet is 4 grams, and per day on average, we're talking 120 to 130 grams being consumed
Yeah,
per person per day. Wow. And it's
a lot
funny
of
in
sugar
nutritional.
packets per day.
Oh, it's unreal. In nutritional
So
nirvana,
I don't want to lose sight of that. So let's
go,
just
go.
take sugar because, again, we were previously talking about what causes cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to make sure we keep that link. You
Right.
eat too much sugar too often, too many times over years, that sugar is ingested. It causes chronic inflammation, which in
Mm-hmm.
turn causes cancer.
Yep. As well as a host of so many problems.
So many other things, of course,
Yep.
in terms of chronic diseases.
Yep. I thought it was unique in nutritional nirvana. You were explaining the three different forms of apple and their sugar content.
Yeah,
It was actual apple, applesauce, and apple juice.
yeah,
Can you give people a little understanding of that? And then there's one more question, and this episode will come to an end.
sure. So, three forms of an apple. I thought it was a good thing to visualize. So, if you eat an
Sure.
apple, a whole piece of fruit, an apple, when you eat the apple, you're getting all of the fiber within that apple with the fructose, which is the main sugar component of a piece of fruit. So that spikes your blood sugars much less insulin is produced when you are taking the apple in because it's digested more slowly because you got all the fiber with it.
Right.
So that's why I say in one of my bullet points is you get one piece of whole fruit per day
Right. Right.
because you're going to get the fiber with it. So
Right.
that insulin spike from eating that apple is not as dramatic as if you take the second form of an apple, which is say applesauce. So applesauce is ground up and it gets rid of a lot of that fiber. There's still some
Correct.
in there, but it's more of like chunks of apple with added sugar in it, by the way,
Tons of sugar. Tons
for
of sugar.
applesauce. So not only you
Hmm.
got added sugar, but you've gotten rid of a lot of the fiber from
Yeah.
the original apple itself. And hence there's more sugar in applesauce.
That,
And when
that,
you eat applesauce, your blood sugar spikes a lot higher than if you were just to eat the apple. And then the last and worst form of an apple is apple juice.
sure.
Apple juice has been filtered out, so there's no fiber in apple juice. And what you're drinking when you drink 100% pure apple juice, you're drinking 100% pure sugar.
Yep.
And that spikes your blood sugar the highest with the highest levels of insulin. And when you
Mhm.
spike insulin in your bodies, guess what happens? You store all that sugar as fat.
Yep.
And so that's sort of getting into the metabolism of, say, just something as simple as eating an apple.
And people love juicing.
Yeah.
Is it just as bad, the juicing, because you're taking the fiber away?
Yes. It's one of the worst things you can possibly do on a regular basis is juicing. So I cannot condone juicing in any form. And the problem with these stores that you can go in and get, a big thing of 20, 30 ounces of a juice is that it's full of sugar. They add sugar, and a lot of the fiber from all of that is not within the final product. And so you're not getting the fiber that you would by eating, say, the original piece of fruit itself.
And now the last question for this episode. I love I love in the book you said we're going against 50,000 years of human survival by having every fruit available in every season. Can
Yes.
can you explain to people, like one of our close friends was saying that they were upset that with new changes, they couldn't get strawberries, and I was like, well, because you shouldn't be having strawberries. It was in the Northeast during the winter. I go, are they
Yeah.
growing outside? I get it, but can you explain to everyone why it is unusual to have every fruit available from the 1st of January to December 31st? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So it's the oddest thing. So I recently moved up and I'm here up in Carmel, Indiana. So, and I'm a big Costco fan. So I made a run. I went to Costco a couple of weeks ago, and it's such a great example. You go to the produce section in Costco, and they've got every known fruit you can imagine there. And it's
Yeah.
February here, right? So in the back of my mind, I'm like, what fruit? Where is this coming from? What fruit should I be
Right.
eating when it's February outside? And it
Hmm.
goes back to our Paleolithic ancestors who, during the winter time, didn't have any apples around to be eating. No strawberries, no papaya, no watermelon.
No.
None of the fruits were available, right? So what did they survive on? They survived on high quality protein on what they could kill during the winter time, which is basically 95, if not more, protein in their diet.
Hmm.
So it's just an example of how our environments have changed over a very small period of time of, say, 50 to 100,000 years. So back in the day for our Paleolithic ancestors, yeah, they got pieces of fruit occasionally in the springtime or the summer or the fall when there was fruit on a tree and you could pick it and eat it. But besides that, their diets were very limited in terms of fruits and even vegetables for that matter. So we didn't eat a lot of vegetables or fruit back then. And certainly our genes haven't changed in that short amount of
Right.
time. And that's what our diets ought to be comprised of
Right.
in a similar way today.
And before anyone says, yes, but they died so much younger. Yeah, well, they were getting attacked by woolly mammoths. I mean,
Correct.
so that's, yeah, before we start saying, well, I don't think they all died of disease.
So that's
I
a
think
common
many of
myth
them,
that
yeah, yeah,
they died a lot younger, and that is partially true. And so what did they
right,
die of? They
right.
died of when they stepped on a rock and they cut their foot and they
Correct.
got an infection, and they died from that infection. So that's one
Yes.
big reason. Number two, they died of starvation many times, whether they weren't in a group large enough to survive the harsh winters. And so many of them died of malnutrition and because they
Mm,
just couldn't kill enough animals to survive.
no doubt.
And
No
then the
doubt.
third reason is they were not the top predator during
No,
these times, and so they would get chased by bigger critters, bigger animals, and get killed often as a result. And then the last reason was warfare. So there was
sure.
warfare between one clan versus another of our Paleolithic ancestors, and so they got killed by
Mm,
spears and such
correct.
of protecting their environment or their properties in those
Right.
particular regions.
Yes. So prime example, if you are going to Costco and every day you went to Costco and other patrons all had spears and were trying to kill you before you went and got your meat, or you could be attacked by a saber-toothed tiger, chances are you wouldn't live as long. If it was that was your daily routine.
I can tell you
He's
what
talking,
I can tell you what our Paleolithic ancestors did not die of. They did not die of diabetes.
nope.
They did not die of obesity. They were
Hmm.
tall and lean and muscular in nature.
Correct.
They did not die of hypertension. They did not die from strokes. They didn't
Yep.
die of cancers, by the way. Cancer was
Right.
almost non existent during those times.
Right.
Okay. And
Right.
so that's a great example of the way we live our lives today based on what we eat and drink and our lifestyle choices and the way they lived their lives then and what we
Yep.
died from. Two very different things.
Yep. Look, it's real simple. I'm going to wrap it up now. Doc, you and I are going to do at least one or two more podcasts. Folks, what he's basically saying is we don't have to kill ourselves.
No.
We're making the choices that are causing us illness, that are causing these problems and ultimately death. Again, I go back and only because he would be honest about it. My brother was only 3 years older than me. He was sick for years. He had strokes. He had heart issues. We came from the same parents, but I chose a different way, and it wasn't hard. The food is delicious. I'm eating great foods. This is not a diet, okay? It is a lifestyle. It is a way to live where you're choosing this instead of that, and you're reading the ingredients. We just want you to get healthy. And look, in the end, as I end off every podcast, I always say, no matter what mistakes you've made, we've all made them. Forget about that. Uh, it's about what you're going to do today because we're all just people. We're flawed. We make mistakes. But if we work hard, we're full of potential. We're just people. There's just you.
Yep.
It's just me and Doc. And if we work hard, that's good enough. Thank you, Doc, for coming on. We're going to do at least one or two more.
Okay.
And folks, thanks for listening. Keep an ear and eye out on it. I'm going to put Doc's links where you can get his stuff, his book, his supplements, and I may even try to create a shopping cart for you with a lot of the foods that Doc is talking about so you'll know exactly what we're speaking of and you can find it easier that way.
Yeah, it's a great
All right.
idea.
Great.
Well,
Peace out, folks.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely.